Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily News. I'm Nicholas Richardson. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has called for more intensive diplomatic efforts to end the war in Ukraine in an interview with ZDF television. He said a peace conference involving Russia needed to be held. Scholz is preparing a peace plan in the war between Russia and Ukraine, which would, according to the Italian newspaper La Repubblica, see the Russian Federation keep the Ukrainian territories it has already occupied. The media also reports that Chancellor Scholz wants to go down in history as the peace chancellor because he has a vested interest in this, using the war in Ukraine to regain the support of voters he is losing.
3 days after these words of a Russian war criminal. Are we ready for negotiations with them? We have never refused to do so, but not on the basis of some paper claims. The German Chancellor wants to organise a peace summit as soon as possible with the participation of Russia, even though it continues to murder Ukrainian civilians, including women and children. Now is the time for us to discuss how to get out of this war as soon as possible. There will certainly be another peace conference, and President Zelensky and I agree that it must take place with the participation of Russia. The desire to rebuild relations with Moscow as quickly as possible is driven by economic interests. However, it is also important to consider the significant proportion of German society that is anti-American and supportive of Moscow. For many Germans, the war in Ukraine is not a direct concern. Ukraine has expressed a desire for peace, but has indicated that this can only occur once the criminals have withdrawn from Russian-occupied Ukrainian territory.
That is why we need strength.
We must be strong. We must force Russia to seek peace. We must make Russian cities and even Russian soldiers think about what they need, peace or Putin. We can try and will get them to choose peace. Scholz talks about supporting Ukraine on the one hand and wants a quick peace on the other. This will be a reward and an incentive for the Russian leadership, as well as for other parties in the international arena who engage in similar disruptive activities. It may also encourage actions such as the People's Republic of China to attack the People's Republic of Taiwan. Germany's proposals may be influenced by the situation in the United States. It is unlikely that the Pentagon will be eager to hand over parts of Ukraine's territories. The Americans did not invest billions of dollars in helping Ukraine so that Putin could declare victory at home. Berlin has a great opportunity today to show what it can do. In the United States, there's a power vacuum. Biden is in, then he's out. It's unclear. New elections in 2 months, a new president on the 20th of January next year. After that, the geopolitical window will close on all sorts of initiatives. And in Poland, since the 13th of December, there has been a government friendly to Germany. It's hard to find decisions made by Donald Tusk's government that don't align with German interests. We reached out to the Polish Foreign Ministry to get their take on the proposal for an abrupt peace made by the German Chancellor. So far, no minister has had a chance to comment. The press office, despite requests, hasn't sent an answer to the questions of whether the Polish authorities support Scholz's proposal. Poland, the largest state in Central Europe, fails to voice its concerns regarding attempted rapprochement with the Russian Federation. Without this voice of opposition, Germany is free to pursue its own agenda, which has always been to build a relationship with Russia over the heads of Central and Eastern European states. It's no surprise to hear such opinions given that Polish diplomacy is headed by a politician who already expressed his view after Russia's attack on Ukraine in 2014. Let's be clear, we are not at war with Russia. Russia is not our enemy. It is a persistent geopolitical rival, but President Putin is not Stalin. If he murders, it is in detail, not wholesale. This is a big difference, especially for the victims. Sikorski and his boss Donald Tusk are responsible for Germany's push for a reset policy with Russia. We want dialogue with Russia as it is. We can't afford to do a reset 2.0 in Poland, Europe and the world.
A few days ago, President Andrzej Duda brought up a rather controversial agreement between the Polish and Russian security services during the first civic platform governments from 2007 to 2015. It was created with the personal approval of Prime Minister Tusk, who was a great supporter of this initiative. Now, when the word reset has lost its positive meaning, it's understandable that bringing this up causes tension within the ruling coalition.
In the light of the recent events surrounding the surrender of Russian spy Pavel Rubtsov and the revelation that he had access to secret files, President Andrzej Duda took the opportunity to reflect on the controversial agreement between the Polish Internal Security Service, the SKW, and the Russian FSB. In 2012, an agreement was reached between the SKW and the FSB regarding cooperation. This was agreed during the tenure of Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Could this cooperation between the Russian security services and the Polish security services under the government of Mr. Prime Minister Donald Tusk still be continuing, given the apparent continuity of this arrangement? It is worth noting that the agreement to cooperate with the Russian security services, signed by Prime Minister Donald Tusk in 2011, was a key factor in the subsequent developments. The current leader of the 13th December coalition has publicly criticised the president for drawing attention to this embarrassing fact for Donald Tusk. I have never previously used this argument and will do so for the first time in its entirety. I'm grateful that there are only 333 days remaining. Polish military intelligence's agreement with the Russian FSB was formalized in 2013, although informal cooperation had already been in place since 2008. Polish officers, including Colonel Nosek, engaged in social interactions with Russian counterparts over alcoholic beverages. At the present time, ministers in Donald Tusk's administration are stating that there is no possibility of continuing the policy of opening up to Russia. Please note that this agreement is not currently in force. Consequently, any suspect in Poland who has charges against them has access to the files concerning them. However, this is not the case. In accordance with Article 156 of the Code of Criminal Procedure, Section 5, access to the file of the suspect is permitted, unless there is a need to safeguard the proper course of the proceedings or to protect an important state interest. And so it was in this case. The question is why Prime Minister Tusk reacts so nervously when the topic of Russian influence over Poland comes up in public discourse. Mr. Prime Minister very much does not want the public to remember the very issue of the agreement, the issue of the policy pursued towards the Nord Stream, nor does he want to remember the Russian foreign minister invited to the briefing of the Polish ambassadors after the Smolensk catastrophe. One of the first decisions of Donald Tusk's team was to dismiss members of the Commission to investigate Russian influence. When the public media were illegally taken over last December, the series Reset, documenting the rapprochement between Donald Tusk's government and Vladimir Putin, was immediately removed from the TV archives. The public is supposed to forget about dialogue with Russia as it is.
3 billion zloty is missing from the hospital budget. The Minister of Health, Izabela Leszczyna, is demanding a subsidy from the Ministry of Finance. On the other hand, is looking for savings by closing down delivery wards. Why is there a lack of money for health? Edyta Holdinska is checking.
The search for 3 billion zloty for hospitals is underway. This is a demand made by the Minister of Finance to the Minister of Health. Negotiations are difficult because, in the background, there is still an unfulfilled promise to reduce the health insurance premium. Will it be possible to find the missing billions for hospitals? I don't know any Minister of Health in the world who is satisfied with their budget, so of course I'm not satisfied. I want more. But I have to give credit to the Minister of Finance for realizing that what the law imposes on him is 5.6% of GDP. This will not be the GDP of 2024, but the GDP of 2023. And of course, this will not be good for healthcare. But this is the provision of the law. I understand that the minister has a lot of problems and is paying off the debts of law and justice. The missing 3 billion zloty would be the next batch of money for hospitals. Finance Minister Andrzej Domański has already transferred the same amount to the health system, but it is still not enough. What is happening? There is no money for what is very important in the healthcare system, which is overperformance, i.e., what the hospital will do above and beyond in such unplanned situations as deliveries, oncology, etc. In the past, it was guaranteed that all surgeries performed would be paid for. Now we have unpaid bills for the second quarter and very serious reasons to believe that this will continue into next year. This is very bad news for smaller hospitals that are struggling to make ends meet. The Ministry of Health, as we reported, is already looking for savings in maternity wards. 1 in 3 of Poland's obstetrics and gynecology wards is headed for liquidation. This is a map showing these alarming figures. As many as 111 hospitals will disappear because fewer than 400 babies are born in them each year. The state's financial situation does not look any better next year. We expect the state deficit to reach 5.5%, while the debt will reach 59.8%. This high deficit is due to the measures we have taken in recent months. There is not enough money for healthcare, and politicians continue to promise Poles that they will lower healthcare premiums. This promise was made with the intention of not fulfilling it. Since there is not enough money for healthcare, there is now no money in the budget to lower this premium. We can't afford it. How much should the state spend on healthcare to be enough? The Law and Justice Party, after the outbreak of the pandemic in 2021, introduced a law that imposes an increase in the threshold of healthcare spending. The target is up to 7% of GDP. This is particularly insulting because, during the Law and Justice government, it was said that there was a shortage of healthcare and that the health service was underfunded. The exact opposite is true. It is the civic platform that lacks money for healthcare. And every now and then, the Public Finance Committee secretly transfers money to public media in liquidation. And it's not the media that are being closed down, but hospitals. The consequences of such priorities of those in power will be felt not by the Ministry of Finance, but by Poles in need of medical care. Edyta Hołdyńska, Republika.
A third of the money the civic platform received when it was in opposition came from people in the property industry. Was this lobbying successful? Donald Tusk's plan to ameliorate the housing crisis is to subsidise demand by giving first-time home buyers interest-free mortgages. Is this the missing piece of the jigsaw that the Polish housing market has been looking for?
23,000 zloty, or almost $6,000 per square meter. This is the average price of a new apartment in Warsaw in August this year. On the second-hand market, one has to pay over 18,500 zlotys, or $5,000, and there are no signs that these prices will fall. There are works in progress, attempts with astonishing persistence to subsidize developers and banks, which will lead to an increase in real estate prices. This includes Donald Tusk's much-touted 0% mortgage program, i.e., cheaper and easier loans for the purchase of a first apartment or house. How much have we set aside in total for housing programs, housing support? In total, we have more than 4 billion zlotys in the budget. More than 4 billion zlotys. And as we talked about it, how we divide it will depend on the evaluation of specific projects. The 0% mortgage plan is the most advanced of these so far. The 0% mortgage is supposed to make it easier for young people to start their adult lives. In theory, even though the loan itself will be cheaper, housing prices will simply rise to swallow up whatever extra money prospective customers are willing to pay. Banks and real estate developers will benefit the most from this 0% mortgage scheme. If we subsidize demand but do nothing on the supply side, prices will inevitably rise. The introduction of 0% mortgages is opposed by, among others, the coalition partners of the civic platform from Poland 2050. But Tusk seems determined on this issue. According to the opposition, not without reason, in the last 2 years, as much as 30% of Civic Platform's campaign contributions were made by people connected with the real estate industry. Business has its own laws. You don't spend your own hard-earned money for no reason. That's why we should treat it as an investment. And that's probably how businessmen treat it, and there's probably a good reason for it. At the moment, many young people are not able to buy their own flat. Interest rates on housing loans in Poland are among the highest in Europe. The government of Donald Tusk has also abolished the 2% safe credit program introduced by the United Right and has limited credit holidays. The alternative to buying an apartment from a developer remains renting, and renting is getting more expensive. Currently, the average price of renting an apartment in Warsaw exceeds 4,000 zloty. Konrad Wąż, Republika.
A Russian drone has fallen on Latvian territory. It is a Shahed combat unmanned aircraft used for attacks on Ukraine. The Latvian authorities have confirmed this. NATO is concerned as the number of similar dangerous incidents is increasing. The Romanians had a similar problem, and in Poland, the search for the object that was supposed to have violated Polish airspace has lasted for almost 2 weeks.
An emergency alert in Latvia. A Russian drone entered Latvian airspace and crashed in a civilian area. The dangerous incident took place in the eastern part of Latvia. Flying from Belarus, the drone crashed near the town of Rozekne, a place with a large Polish minority. I was in Rozekne about 2 weeks ago, where we brought books to a Polish school for Polish children, because there are Polish schools there, and it's not a military facility, so I would say this is a deliberate move by the Russians. The Shahed drone used in the attacks on Ukraine could not have been in Latvia by chance. What happened is a very serious matter, and we take it very seriously. A Russian drone has crashed on our territory. This reminds us that the war is also coming closer to our borders. Russia is not only trying to create chaos in the Baltics and the eastern flank states more broadly, it is also testing the reactions of individual countries, and they vary. Latvians using a Black Hawk found the remains of a drone and immediately informed their compatriots and allies. An investigation is underway. We are in close contact with our allies. The number of such incidents on NATO's eastern flank is increasing, and we have to face them together. The Romanians brought out 2 of their F-16 multi-role fighters and ordered residents of the Tulsa region to exercise extreme caution after it was determined that a Russian drone may have crashed there. NATO is concerned. While we have no information to suggest that this is a deliberate attack by Russia against allies, these actions are irresponsible and potentially dangerous. And in Poland, there is a frightening helplessness on the part of the Prime Minister and the state services. At the moment, almost 400 soldiers 24 hours a day are looking for some traces of this drone or 2 drones, as some believe, but there is still not even 100% certainty that anything entered Polish airspace. We do not know whose it was, if it was at all. On the 26th of August, a drone or 2 drones, what exactly the army did not know. In any case, some object from the Ukrainian side. It was seen for 33 minutes, then it disappeared. The services searched but did not find it. After 10 days of searching, the operational commander of the armed forces, General Maciej Klisz, declared that the airspace of our country had not been violated, although he had previously reported that an unidentified aerial object had violated the airspace of Poland. The army, as well as other areas of Polish public life, today is dominated by thinking in terms of revanchism, looking for the sins of the previous team, punishing the previous commanders, administrators of the armed forces and also the Ministry of Defence. There is no time for serious work, as can be seen not only from this situation, but also from many other incidents. And this is a very disturbing signal that Donald Tusk's government is sending to a hostile Russia. Unfortunately, the actions of Polish authorities in connection with the recent violation of Polish airspace were a mistake, and we also have to deal with such events from which Russia draws conclusions. Unfortunately, we have shown weakness in recognizing what is happening in the Polish skies. The safety of Poles should be a priority and not the subject of the government's political games. Marcin Szewczak, TV Republica.
That's the news. Thank you for watching, and from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.